All right, barrels out of bond. Some good things happen in this chapter. The dwarves get captured by the wood elves at the start. Thorn has already been captured and had his little interview with the elven king. Bilbo is going to have to do a lot. He is sort of going to come into his own as a burglar. Find out he doesn't really like it, even though he's surviving and being able to eat food, which is better than what was happening in Mirkwood once they left the path or even on the path. He's bored. It's kind of a boring time for him, however long they are in the Elven King's dungeon. With the Wood Elves, just talked about them a little bit. They're described as being more dangerous and less wise than the elves in Rivendell. They are part of different groups, kind of different subcategories. They're all elves, but the elves in Rivendell talked about how they went across the ocean, came back more powerful, more wise, more handy. Whereas the Wood Elves, this group, they stayed here and enjoyed the starlight and did stuff, but they didn't learn the things that the High Elves learned over in the Land of Fairy, which could be a discussion for another time. I kind of described this section of Mirkwood as being the Land of Fairy, but it's more like the Land of Fairy with a lowercase f, whereas the High Elves, the elves in Rivendell, went to the Land of Fairy with a capital F. Even more magical place, even though this Mirkwood is a magical place as well. They are still described as being good people, capital G, capital P. So even though they're not being super kind to the dwarves, they have learned to be distrustful of strangers because they live in Mirkwood, because it's a place of darkness and corruption, like we've talked about. So we could probably cut them a little bit of slack in that case. Bilbo, like I said, really is the leader of the expedition at this point. He's the one that comes up with the plan to escape, when they executes the plan for them to escape. Even though the dwarves definitely grumble, because who wouldn't grumble about having to fit into a barrel and float down the river to escape? But seems like it's the only way, and it all kind of works out. There's more of that element of luck that we learned about later, where this is really the only way that they could have gone. If they actually stayed on the path like they were told, it wouldn't have gone well for them. They would have come up on the other side of the forest and in a marshy, dangerous area, and they probably wouldn't have made it to the mountain. But so luck is just helping everything go right, essentially. With the river, we've come across the enchanted stream, which was a boundary. Now we're on the river leaving Mirkwood. So seeing water as this liminal space, this boundary, this place of transformation, is very common in literature and mythology. If you read a lot of old fairy tales, Welsh mythology, there's a lot of water, a lot of sea travel that is transformative. You could also think of Odysseus on his Odyssey back home. A lot of transformation, a lot of learning experiences. I think it's interesting later on when Bilbo is talking to the dragon, kind of calling that forward a little bit. Bilbo will say, as he's introducing himself, "I am he that buries his friends alive and drowns them, and he draws them alive again from the water." Tolkien was very Catholic, very religious. He probably had this. I think he had this idea of baptism on his mind as he was writing this point, because there's that religious symbolism of being buried in the water and being resurrected coming out of the water. So I think there's a little bit of that symbolism as well, as we're talking about the river. Dwarves are not happy, but they're just in their barrels for the rest of this chapter. And then we'll see what happens next chapter.